Have you ever had that moment? That instant when you look at someone and it feels like time just stops, like the entire universe is holding its breath along with you? That indescribable sensation that can only be explained as twin flame signs, signals your body recognizes long before your mind can process them. It's as if your body knows something your mind is still desperately trying to understand. Many people live their whole lives without ever experiencing this, but if you're here, watching this video, chances are you've either felt it, or you're about to feel something that will forever change what human connection means to you. And if this has already happened to you, go ahead and tap that like button so YouTube knows this content matters, and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss the upcoming signs on this journey, because what's coming next might be exactly what you've been searching for. The truth nobody wants to admit is that most of what you've learned about romantic love is wrong. We're constantly sold the fantasy that someone will complete us, that we need to find our other half, that another person is supposed to fill our empty spaces, and that's the exact opposite of what a true twin flame recognition really is. Because here's the shock, a twin flame doesn't come to complete you. They come to mirror you. They come to reveal every shadowed corner you left hidden. They come to transform you completely, and if you're not ready for that transformation, this connection can be the most unsettling thing you've ever experienced. But here's the fascinating paradox: when you finally understand what twin flame signs really mean, when you can recognize the unmistakable patterns of this extraordinary connection, everything changes. You stop questioning. You stop doubting. You start trusting something that goes far beyond logic. And in this video, you're going to discover the 21 irreversible signs, the ones that leave no room for interpretation, the ones that make you stop and ask yourself, wait, is this person actually my twin flame? The next few minutes will challenge everything you thought you knew about love, connection, and what it really means to be with someone. You'll learn signs no one has ever shown you, understand dynamics that seem impossible, and gain clarity about the question that might be eating you alive: is he my twin flame? Or is she my twin flame? Because once you know the real signs, you'll never sit in that devastating uncertainty again. You'll know. Deeply. Unshakably. So if you're ready to finally understand the true nature of this connection, if you want the tools to recognize when you've actually found your twin soul, stay with me on this journey. The next few minutes may completely rewrite your love story. Sign 1, the recognition that freezes time. There's a moment when the body knows long before the mind can process what's happening. It's when your twin flame steps into your energetic field and everything around you seems to slow down, as if the universe itself is holding its breath with you. This recognition isn't rational, it doesn't come with logical explanations or reasons you can share with friends. It simply happens like an energetic shock that freezes time for a few seconds. It's the feeling that you've known this person for entire lifetimes, even if it's your very first meeting in this reality, and your whole body reacts with a vibration you've never felt before. Many people describe this moment as if a portal opens inside their chest, the heart racing, the breath turning shallow, goosebumps rising for no apparent reason. You look at this person and something primal, something deeper than ordinary consciousness, recognizes that soul is far too important to ignore. It's interesting, because days later you might reflect on that encounter and realize that your body knew exactly what your mind was still denying. That initial jolt was your entire being recognizing the presence of your twin soul in human form. The mind may try to question, justify, or search for logic, but the body had already delivered the verdict from the very first second. There's a story about a woman who, when she met her twin flame in a completely ordinary grocery store line, felt such overwhelming intensity that she had to step outside just to breathe. Her whole body was shaking, her eyes were burning without tears, and she couldn't logically explain why she was reacting that way to a total stranger. Only weeks later, after they had established contact and begun having deep conversations, did she finally understand. In that moment in the checkout line, the twin flame recognition had already happened fully, and she was simply integrating that truth into her conscious mind. When you allow that recognition to unfold naturally, letting the sensation flow without resistance. It's as if reality itself begins to rearrange around you to create the circumstances needed for that connection to deepen even further. Sign 2, the spiritual déjà vu. There's a strange sensation that happens when you meet your twin flame. It's as if your mind recognizes every gesture, every tone of voice, every way they smile, yet it can't figure out where that recognition comes from. You look into this person's eyes and feel a familiarity so deep it's almost unsettling, because your brain is desperately trying to locate the missing memory, that lost internal file that could explain why you know every mannerism of this person as if you had lived 1,000 lifetimes together. It's déjà vu amplified to a level that transcends coincidence. It's the soul saying, I know you from a place far deeper than conscious memory can reach. This recognition goes far beyond the visual. It's about feeling the person's presence as if they've always been mapped into your energetic system. When they speak, you already know how the sentence will end. When they move, your body instinctively adjusts as if you're following dance steps you learned centuries ago. When they fall silent, the quiet is so comfortable, so familiar, that you could fall asleep in it with ease. It's a reunion disguised as a first meeting, a return home that feels like an arrival, and the emotional confusion that comes with it is real. Your mind is trying to process something your soul has already fully understood. You may try to deny it, to wonder if you're being irrational, but that unshakable, I've seen this before, feeling won't leave you. There are people who describe this moment as waking up from a dream they could never quite remember, yet one that left deep imprints, and suddenly, that dream is standing in front of them, breathing, looking at them with the same intensity they feel. One woman shared that when she saw her twin flame for the first time at an event, she experienced a flash of memory from a place she had never visited, with a person she had never met, yet the details were so vivid that she swore she had lived it before. This is the nature of undeniable twin flame signs. They leave no room for rational doubt because they go far beyond it, touching layers of consciousness that operate independently of logic. And when you allow that familiarity to flow without resistance, something even deeper begins to reveal itself, layers of recognition you never imagined existed. Sign 3, constant and inescapable synchronicities. Synchronicities start showing up like clues left by the universe, as if some cosmic intelligence were constantly recalibrating the pathways of your life to make sure you and your twin flame keep crossing paths, even when everything suggests you should be far apart. You see 11:11 on the clock for the third time that day, a meaningful song plays on the radio at the exact moment you were thinking about this person, or you, coincidentally, end up in the same place without planning it, and it doesn't happen once or twice, but so many times that mathematical probability starts to feel like science fiction. It's as if your spiritual GPS is constantly recalculating your route, steering you away from paths that don't lead to this person and placing you directly in their trajectory whenever the journey requires it. These synchronicities act as confirmation signs, like the universe whispering, yes, everything is aligned, keep going. One person shared that they finally decided to forget their twin flame and move on, and on that exact day, they received 3 back-to-back signs. They heard the person's voice on a completely random podcast, saw their name in a post that appeared on their feed, and when they opened the book they were reading, the very first sentence their eyes landed on mentioned a concept that was deeply connected to their shared experience. It's not coincidence when statistical probability is shouting, hey, wake up. It's the universe operating with a precision that crushes any argument of mere luck, pulling you right back into the twin flame journey. What's fascinating is that these synchronicities intensify the moment you start recognizing them. The more attention you give them, the more they appear, as if the very act of observing makes them denser, stronger, and impossible to ignore. You begin to read these messages like a code the universe is constantly transmitting, repeating numbers, unexpected encounters, songs arriving at the perfect moment, all functioning as a silent language of confirmation. It's helpful to keep a journal or even a note on your phone to record these synchronicities, because once you line them up, the pattern becomes so obvious that even the most skeptical part of you is forced to admit that something extraordinary is happening beyond conventional explanation. And as you deepen this understanding, even more profound revelations begin to emerge about what truly binds two souls, and that's exactly where the real transformation begins. Sign 4, the emotional connection at a distance. There's a phenomenon that completely challenges the idea that emotions are just internal chemistry. It's when you deeply feel something the other person is experiencing even though you're miles apart, with no communication, no warning, and no logical clue that anything is happening. You wake up in the middle of the night with a tightness in your chest, a wave of anxiety with no clear cause, and later discover that in that exact moment your twin flame was going through something intense, something that put them in emotional distress. Your energy picked up the signal, your body registered the vibration as if the two of you were in the same room breathing the same air. This is one of the deepest expressions of how to know your twin flame, because it goes beyond emotion, it's energetic fusion operating in real time. One story illustrates this perfectly. A couple was separated geographically, he was in another city for a work project, and she was at home going through her normal routine. Out of nowhere, she felt a fear so overwhelming, so consuming, that it nearly knocked her down, a fear of loss with no rational origin, since he hadn't mentioned anything unusual happening that day. Hours later, he called her completely shaken, explaining that he had just received terrible news about a close family member's health and had fallen into despair, and the timestamps matched exactly with the moment she felt that unexplained emotional surge. This isn't coincidence, it's tangible confirmation that communication channels exist beyond the physical, and that two truly connected souls can establish a synchronization science is only beginning to explore. This emotional connection at a distance works like an invisible thread transmitting emotional, energetic, and even physical states between the two. When one is in deep joy, the other often feels a sudden lift in mood. When one is in sadness, the other feels a heaviness without knowing why. It's important to observe these emotional transmissions with curiosity instead of fear, because they're clear indicators of "is he my twin flame?" This ability to feel the other beyond the five senses is one of the most profound signs of an authentic twin flame connection. You can start validating these sensations by recording each time you feel something intense and later checking with the other person whether they were experiencing that emotion. Soon you'll notice a pattern so consistent that any remaining doubt dissolves completely. And as this connection deepens, something even more extraordinary begins to emerge, a form of communication that goes far beyond emotions. Sign 5, intuitive, almost telepathic, communication. There comes a point when words become almost unnecessary. You think about sending a message and it arrives before you even type it, you get a sudden feeling about what the other person is experiencing and later discover you were completely right. You somehow know exactly when they're going to call or show up even though nothing was planned. It's as if the two of you share a single mental channel, a frequency that's always tuned in, transmitting thoughts, sensations, and even images that appear simultaneously in both minds. This intuitive communication is so accurate, so consistent, that you start questioning whether you're still operating within the reality you know, or if you've stepped into a territory where classic physics no longer applies, because technically, thoughts shouldn't travel through the air and land in someone else's mind, yet with your twin flame, that's exactly what happens. A practical example is when you're about to type a message and the person calls you that very second. It's not a coincidence, they sense your intention to reach out before you even hit send. Or those strange moments when the two of you say the exact same sentence at the exact same time, finish each other's ideas, or wrap up stories together as if reading from a script you memorized lifetimes ago. Some people describe waking up at the exact same minute, without an alarm, without any obvious reason, as if one were the energetic shadow of the other, both rising in sync with the same invisible pulse. This mental synchronization is one of the most undeniable twin flame signs because there's no room for interpretation. Either the message arrives before they send it, or it doesn't. What makes it even more fascinating is that this intuitive communication works especially well when there's emotional silence, when both people are at peace with themselves. A clear mind can transmit and receive with far greater precision, without the static of fears and insecurities interfering with the signal. A powerful practice is to sit in meditation for a few minutes, focus on the image of the person, and open your mind to receive whatever comes. you might be surprised by how accurate the information is when you put intention into this process. As you begin to trust this intuitive communication and practice it consciously, you'll notice that twin flame blockage, those barriers that seem to appear between you, is often just mental noise that disappears the moment you choose to truly listen beyond words. And it's in this deep listening that the real magic begins, because the two of you start to know each other on levels that completely transcend the surface. Sign 6, the soul mirror, shadow and light. Your twin flame works like a perfect mirror, not the kind that only reflects your beauty, but the one that shines a light on every dark corner you'd rather keep in the shadows, every wound you haven't fully healed, every pattern you've been repeating without even realizing it. When this person enters your life, they don't come to comfort you with soothing lies, they come to turn on a flashlight inside your deepest layers and show you exactly what's there, even the parts you hide from yourself. And yes, it hurts, because no one likes seeing themselves completely, vulnerable, exposed, unfiltered. But it's in that exposure that true transformation begins. The irritation you feel toward this person often has nothing to do with them, it's about what they reveal in you, the old wounds that start bleeding again because they finally found someone safe enough to hold your pain. There's a classic story about a man who believed he was extremely patient and understanding, until he met his twin flame. Suddenly, he discovered a dormant explosive temper that had been buried inside him for years, waiting for the right permission to surface. Once he began connecting deeply with her, all that irritation, all that repressed anger started bubbling up. At first, he blamed her, convinced she was bringing out the worst in him. But over time, he realized she wasn't awakening anything new, she was simply creating a safe space where he could finally feel and process everything he had stored away. That is the true purpose of the soul mirror, it doesn't punish, it liberates. It gives you permission to heal completely. A true soulmate isn't the one who keeps you comfortable inside your limitations, but the one who challenges you to rise beyond them. The real challenge here is learning not to interpret the mirror as a personal attack, but as a disguised gift. When the person triggers you, instead of reacting defensively, you can pause and ask yourself, what is this bringing up in me? What old wound is being touched? This practice of deep self-reflection is essential to integrate the mirror work your twin flame brings into your life. Books like The Body Keeps the Score by Bessel van der Kolk can help you understand how old emotional wounds stay stored in the body and how to access them for transformation. As you begin to recognize and shift these deep patterns, you realize this person isn't destroying you, they're rebuilding you on foundations that are much stronger, much more authentic. And when both of you start doing this inner transformation simultaneously, something extraordinary happens, a kind of growth that feels almost supernatural in its speed. Sign 7, the inevitable personal transformation. When your twin flame enters your life, you don't stay the same, it's impossible. Your habits begin to shift spontaneously, not because anyone is forcing you, but because you naturally evolve to align with the higher vibration that this connection represents. That hobby you used to love might lose its shine, that routine you followed religiously may start to feel empty, your career goals that once felt so important suddenly take on a completely different perspective, and all of this happens organically, as if you were gradually waking up from a dream you once thought was reality. It's a transformation that doesn't come from guilt or pressure, but from a natural expansion of consciousness, as if you can now see more colors, hear more frequencies, feel more deeply, and what once worked simply doesn't fit this new level of existence anymore. A powerful example is the story of a woman who worked in a highly lucrative corporate job that left her completely empty inside. When she met her twin flame, an artist passionate about his creativity, she began questioning her priorities in ways she never had before. Not because he asked her to quit her job, but because she could no longer ignore that inner calling that had always whispered, "There's more to life than this." She changed careers, started studying fields she had always loved but never allowed herself to explore, and today she lives a life that, although financially less secure, is energetically abundant in ways money could never buy. This is the pattern of the twin flame journey. It doesn't just change you, it challenges you to redefine who you are and why you're here on this planet, bringing purpose where there was only automation. The transformation also manifests on more subtle levels. You begin to meditate because you feel the need to quiet the mental noise, you start seeking books on spirituality and psychology that once held no interest, you feel a pull toward emotional healing that didn't exist before this connection. It's as if the twin flame is a key unlocking doors within you that you didn't even know were there, revealing growth needs that had been dormant. You might start practicing simple techniques like journaling, writing your feelings by hand for 10 minutes a day, guided meditations on YouTube, or even apps like Headspace to help structure this emerging spiritual growth. The important thing is recognizing that these shifts are not just phases, they are your being rediscovering its true nature, its deeper purpose. And as you integrate these transformations, you realize you're becoming a far more authentic, far more powerful version of yourself, a version that attracts experiences and people aligned with who you truly are. Sign 8, the separation phase and the right return. There comes a point when you and your twin flame separate, and this isn't a failure, nor proof that the connection was false. In fact, it's an essential, almost inevitable stage in the twin flame journey. This distance happens because both individuals need to do deep personal work, heal wounds that can only be faced alone, and undergo transformations that require being completely with yourself without the comforting, or challenging, presence of the other. It's like an energetic elastic that stretches and creates tension, but never truly breaks. An invisible bond remains intact even when you're physically apart, and that bond is so strong that it eventually pulls you back toward each other. Many people mistake this separation for the end of a relationship, but in reality, it's a rebirth. The universe is saying, you need space to become the best versions of yourselves before you can truly unite. During this phase, surprising things start to happen. You discover parts of yourself that were dormant, heal wounds that needed deep attention, and gain emotional maturity that would have been impossible to achieve amid the intensity of the previous dynamic. One story that illustrates this is of a couple who separated after 2 years of an extremely intense relationship. He needed to resolve issues with his self-esteem, and she needed to learn how to set healthy boundaries. During their months apart, both engaged in therapy, self-growth work, and established independent lives. Then, naturally and without apparent planning, they reunited, but this time as evolved versions of themselves, truly ready for a union that wasn't based on mutual completion, but on conscious complementarity. This reunion wasn't coincidence, it happened because both had completed the lessons that the separation was meant to teach. What's fascinating is that during this phase, you often receive signs that the other person is still thinking of you, still connected to you, unexpected messages arriving at exactly the right moment, vivid dreams where you meet, that sudden thought that appears without reason. It's the universe whispering, they are still there, the connection remains, we are simply respecting the space both of you need now. The best way to navigate this phase is with acceptance and trust. Continue your inner work, invest in your healing, and don't try to force reunions that need to happen naturally. Practices like meditation focused on forgiveness, both for yourself and the other, and gratitude for the lessons learned are powerful during this period. Once you understand that this separation isn't punishment but preparation, your perspective shifts completely. What once felt like suffering becomes necessary growth. And it's in this matured state that true spiritual changes begin to emerge, the ones that only arise once you have fully integrated the previous lessons. Sign 9, Accelerated Spiritual Growth. There's an acceleration in your spiritual path that's nearly impossible to ignore when your twin flame enters your life. You start seeking answers you never looked for before, reading books on spirituality, meditation, energy, reincarnation, all the things that once seemed distant or even ridiculous now make perfect sense. It's as if an inner call, a voice that's always been there but you never truly heard, finally grows loud enough to capture your full attention, and you can't ignore it because it resonates with the deepest frequencies of your being. This quest isn't superficial or trivial, it's urgent, like you're trying to solve a cosmic mystery that only makes sense if you can understand the deeper layers of reality. The spiritual growth that happens in this phase is so intense that you can literally feel your vibrational frequency rising, your thoughts becoming clearer, your intuition sharpening. It's an accelerated transformation that would take years on a normal spiritual path, but with the presence of a twin flame, it happens in months. A practical example is someone who had never meditated, thought yoga was hippie nonsense, and didn't believe in anything they couldn't touch or measure, until they met their twin flame and realized there were dimensions of reality their rational mind couldn't explain. Suddenly, they were watching videos about chakras, reading books on the law of attraction, meditating daily, exploring crystals, studying astrology, not because it was trendy, but because each practice brought a clarity and peace they had never experienced before. Their body began to naturally regenerate, chronic illnesses they'd carried for years started to diminish, and their overall energy improved drastically. This isn't coincidence, it's the natural result of raising your vibrational frequency. When you tune into a higher vibration, the things that operated on lower frequencies simply can't exist in your space anymore. This is one of the clearest undeniable twin flame signs, a spiritual transformation that seems almost supernatural in its speed and depth. What makes this growth even more fascinating is that it often happens simultaneously. You and your twin flame frequently awaken to spirituality together, as if perfectly synchronized in the pursuit of deeper understanding. You might start exploring practices like reading The Power of Habit by Charles Duhigg to understand how to create sustainable spiritual habits, or Awakening Kundalini by Swami Satyananda Saraswati to understand the deeper energies of your body. Apps like Insight Timer offer hundreds of free guided meditations, and YouTube channels like The Mindful Movement have excellent content for beginners. The key is that this growth isn't forced, it flows naturally because you're magnetically drawn toward it. It's as if the universe is providing the tools you need exactly when you need them. And as you deepen on this spiritual path, you begin to recognize that this journey has a much greater purpose than just a relationship. It's about your soul's mission, your true purpose in this incarnation. Sign 10, the love that sets you free, not holds you back. True love between twin flames is radically different from what popular culture has taught us to expect. It's not possessive, not jealous, and doesn't demand that the other person abandon their identity to fit yours. In fact, it's the exact opposite. It's a love that encourages you to be more yourself, more authentic, more free to explore your talents and paths without fear of losing the other person. This kind of love doesn't fear the other person's growth, doesn't feel threatened when they develop new friendships or pursue their own dreams. On the contrary, it celebrates it as an essential part of both of your evolutions. It functions more as a catalyst for freedom than as a chain of dependence, and this is so contrary to what we've been taught that many people don't even recognize it as love when they finally experience it. A powerful example is when two partners in a twin flame relationship have different dreams. One wants to move to another country to pursue a career, the other has deep roots in their current city. In a typical relationship, this could be a source of devastating conflict, ending in ultimatums and resentment. But in a genuine twin flame relationship, what happens is a deep conversation about how to make it work. Perhaps one moves for a period while the other stays, they visit each other regularly, and they build a connection that transcends physical proximity because the energetic bond remains intact. The conflicts that arise don't push them apart, paradoxically, they bring them closer, because both are willing to find solutions that honor each person's individual growth. This is the true twin flame, not someone who completes you because you're incomplete, but someone who amplifies you because both of you are already whole. The essential practice here is cultivating what could be called unconditional love with healthy boundaries, loving deeply while maintaining your own integrity, your own space, your own life. One way to practice this is through clear, vulnerable communication, where you express your needs without blaming the other. Phrases like, "I need some time alone to recharge, it's nothing personal with you," or, "I feel the need to explore this part of myself, and I'd appreciate your support," create space for both people to feel heard and respected. When you maintain this dynamic, where the love you share frees rather than confines, you realize that the conflicts that arise aren't threats to the relationship, they're opportunities to deepen trust and understanding. And it's on this solid foundation of shared freedom that something even deeper emerges, a silent understanding that transcends words. Sign 11, the feeling of an energetic home. There comes a moment when you realize you don't need a specific house, a specific city, or particular circumstances to feel at home, because home isn't a place, it's a person, it's a vibration, it's that absolute sense of peace that washes over you when you're near them. It's the most comfortable silence you've ever experienced, the kind of silence where no words are needed because their presence already says everything. You could sit next to this person for hours without exchanging a single word and feel more understood, more accepted, more seen than in any deep conversation with anyone else. This peace doesn't come from the absence of conflict or a problem-free relationship, it comes from a level of acceptance so deep that even challenges feel natural, meaningful, part of a greater context you both share. It's as if your nervous system instinctively recognizes this person as safe, your body relaxes, your breathing deepens, your defenses drop because, on some primal level, you know you are secure. A story that perfectly illustrates this is about a man who had spent his entire life in a state of alertness, never fully relaxing, carrying constant tension in his shoulders and jaw, the result of a childhood where he never felt completely safe. When he met his twin flame, after a few months of being close, he noticed something strange. When he was with her, his body naturally released, his jaw relaxed, that constant tension simply vanished, not because she did anything specific, but because her energetic presence radiated such genuine safety that his body knew, without a shadow of doubt, that it could finally lower its defenses. He didn't need to be in a luxurious or perfect environment, they could be in an old car, in a noisy city, anywhere, because when she was near, everything felt like home. This is the mark of a true twin soul, creating a space where you can finally be completely yourself, vulnerable, authentic, without masks. This feeling of energetic home is so powerful that it often transcends even periods of separation. When you think of this person, you feel that peace emerging again, as if they could be physically distant but energetically present. A practice to cultivate and recognize this sensation is simply to create moments of conscious silence with the person, no phones, no distractions, just mutual presence. Notice how your body responds, how your breathing shifts, how that tension you didn't know you were carrying begins to dissolve. This is the twin flame blockage melting away, all those defenses, all those protections you built over your life simply yielding because they finally encountered someone worthy of your complete vulnerability. As you allow yourself to be fully at ease in this presence, you discover that this peace isn't just emotional, it begins to manifest in your external life as well, in how you interact with the world, in how you show up in relationships. Sign 12, Shared Purpose. When you meet your twin flame, you often discover that you're not just in love, you're here to do something together, to create something, to leave a mark on the world that could only happen through this energetic partnership. This isn't romanticized, it's the reality of two souls recognizing that their union carries a greater purpose, a mission that goes far beyond simply being together and happy. It could be starting a business that transforms lives, raising children with values that impact generations, creating art that touches people deeply, or simply radiating such genuine love that everyone around feels the difference. But there is always something that you discover you want to do together, something that resonates with the deepest purpose of both souls. It's as if the universe brought you together specifically because, together, you can achieve what would be impossible individually. A touching example is a couple who met at a personal development seminar. He was a life coach, she was a holistic therapist, and both were working independently in their respective fields. When they met and recognized their twin flame connection, they began sharing their dreams and realized they had a shared vision, to create a transformational program that integrated coaching with energy healing, something that had never been done before. Together, they developed a revolutionary method that helped hundreds of people, and this shared creation became a living expression of the love they felt for each other. Each person transformed through their work was living proof that their union had a transcendental purpose. This is the kind of alignment that defines a true twin flame journey. It's not just about romance, it's about co-creation, it's about leaving a legacy together. What's fascinating is that you often don't even plan this shared purpose. It emerges naturally as you spend more time with the person, as you learn from each other, as your ideas intersect and amplify one another. A powerful practice is to have deep conversations about your highest values, your boldest dreams, your visions for impact, and then observe where these visions overlap, where you could create synergy. Books like Together by Simon Sinek explore how partners can unite around a greater purpose. When you gain clarity about this shared purpose, even the challenges in the relationship make sense, because you're not just going through them for the sake of being together, you're going through them to become the version of yourself needed to fulfill this mission. And it's in this dedication to a higher purpose that you begin to experience a kind of support that goes far beyond the emotional. It's a support that shapes souls, refines character, and creates true excellence in both of you. Sign 13, Authentic Mutual Support. There's a fundamental difference between support that drains your energy and support that nourishes you, and with your twin flame, you experience the latter so consistently that you start to wonder how you ever survived without it. Authentic support isn't about sacrificing yourself, nor is it about denying your own needs to take care of the other person. It flows naturally because both people genuinely want the other to thrive and evolve. It's when the person silently encourages you, not with grandiose words, but with a presence that simply communicates, "I believe in you, I'm here, you can do this," and you feel it so deeply that your heart gains strength to face any challenge. This kind of support is like having a mirror that reflects not your weaknesses, but your potential, someone who sees capabilities in you that you haven't yet recognized in yourself. A story that illustrates this is of a woman going through an extremely challenging period in her career. She was considering giving up her entrepreneurial dreams out of fear of failure. Her partner, her twin flame, didn't cheer her on with empty phrases like, "You can do it." Instead, he created concrete space for her to succeed. He took care of the house on weekends so she could focus on her business, listened to her ideas with genuine curiosity, helped solve practical problems that arose, and most importantly, simply believed in her when she didn't believe in herself. This support carried no expectation of return. It wasn't transactional, it was just the natural expression of someone who truly loves, wanting the other person to reach their fullest potential. Months later, her business began to take off, and when she landed her first major client, the first person she ran to was her partner, because he had been an essential part of that success through his unconditional twin flame support. What makes this support even more remarkable is that it flows both ways. You don't just receive it, you also give it with the same generosity and authenticity. One practice to strengthen this is to communicate explicitly when you need support in a certain area, rather than silently suffering and expecting the other to guess. You say, "I'm going through a tough time in this area, and I would really appreciate your presence and support." This creates a clear opportunity for the other person to show up genuinely. Books like Nonviolent Communication by Marshall Rosenberg teach how to express needs in ways that create connection rather than demand. When both people are willing to support each other authentically, without hidden agendas or keeping score, something extraordinary happens, a dynamic where both grow, both expand, both become more than they were before this partnership. And it is in this safety of being truly supported that you can finally let go of the last barriers you were still holding on to. Sign 14, Healing of Old Traumas. Your twin flame has an almost magical ability to bring to the surface wounds you had buried so deeply that you didn't even know they were there, and this doesn't happen because they want to hurt you, but because their presence creates a safe enough space for these old wounds to finally emerge and be processed. It's as if the warmth of this connection is capable of melting the ice you built around those traumas, allowing the energy that was frozen there to finally flow again. When these wounds surface, and they will, you may be startled by the intensity of the emotions, you may question whether this person is really good for you, but in reality, what is happening is true healing, the process of liberation in action. You're given the opportunity to relive that trauma, but this time with someone by your side who loves you unconditionally, and that makes all the difference between re-traumatization and genuine transformation. A profound example is of a man who had been abandoned by his mother as a child and carried a wound so deep that he created relationship patterns where he always kept emotional distance, always had one foot out, because if he didn't allow himself to love fully, he couldn't be abandoned again. When he met his twin flame, he began to feel the impulse to open up, to trust, to truly give his heart, and the anxiety was immense, because that original abandonment was triggered every time the person didn't reply to a message quickly or had to travel for a few days. But the difference this time was that he had someone who understood what was happening, who didn't blame him for his wounds, who simply remained present as he processed that ancestral fear. Through this consistent presence, that old wound began to heal genuinely, not through denial, but through real repair, through having the corrective experience of being chosen again and again, even when fear tried to sabotage him. This is the true function of a twin flame, to be the healing instrument you needed in that original moment. Healing through a twin flame is not passive, you must be willing to see yourself fully, to acknowledge your wounds, to feel the pain you had long avoided. Practices like therapy with a qualified professional, especially modalities like EMDR or somatic experiencing, which work with trauma on the body level, can be transformative during this process. Deep journaling is also powerful, writing about when the original wound was created, what you needed at that moment, and what your heart needs now to heal. When you allow this healing to happen in partnership with your twin flame, something alchemical occurs. You don't just heal the past, you free yourself from patterns that have been controlling your choices, behaviors, and life. And it is in this deep liberation that you can finally relate from a place of strength and integrity, rather than from a place of wounding. As these old layers of trauma are integrated and healed, you begin to experience what could be described as an emotional rebirth. Sign 15, repetition of patterns until complete healing. There is a pattern you will notice on the twin flame journey. Similar situations tend to repeat, similar arguments resurface, challenges you thought were resolved come back with a slightly different form. And this doesn't mean you aren't evolving, it doesn't mean nothing has changed, it actually means the lessons are deepening, that you're being invited to understand on subtler levels what you have already begun to integrate. It's as if life is saying, you thought you learned it. Let's try again, but this time from a different angle, and each repetition, when faced with awareness, dissolves a little more of that pattern, leaving it a bit weaker, a bit less in control over you. These repetitions are not punishment, they are opportunities for refinement, the universe patiently guiding you as you slowly integrate deeper truths. A classic example is a couple who had a recurring argument about lack of communication. The same argument would resurface every few months, sometimes with the same dynamics, sometimes with variations. The first time it happened, both were desperate, thinking it was a fundamental problem. But as the argument repeated, they began to notice different details with each cycle. The first time was about fear of abandonment, the second was about fear of not being heard, the third was about difficulty being vulnerable. Each repetition revealed a deeper layer of the same theme, and as each layer was recognized and processed, the argument lost its emotional charge, becoming more of an opportunity for connection than a conflict. Eventually, that pattern that once seemed endless began to dissolve, not because it disappeared magically, but because it was fully understood and integrated. This is the work of the twin flame journey. It's slow, sometimes repetitive, but systematic in its ability to transform old patterns into wisdom. The key to navigating these repetitions gracefully is to maintain curiosity instead of falling into despair. When that familiar pattern arises again, take a deep breath and ask yourself, what is this situation showing me this time? What new layer am I being invited to understand? Practices like self-compassion meditation, available on apps like Calm or Insight Timer, can help maintain calm as you move through these cycles. Books like The Inner Journey by Susan David explore how embracing the repetition of patterns can be an opportunity for growth. When you can transform your relationship with these repetitions, seeing them not as failure but as refinement, you notice they begin to space out, decrease in intensity, and gradually transform. And it is in this acceptance of the iterative journey that you can finally go even deeper, to those truths that are only accessible after passing through multiple layers of understanding. Sign 16, Intense Emotional Telepathy. There are moments when you and your twin flame experience synchronizations so precise that they completely defy rational explanation. You wake up in the middle of the night at the exact same minute as the other person, with no apparent cause, no alarm, no external noise, just the feeling that something awakened you simultaneously. Or you feel a wave of deep sadness passing through you, only to later discover that at that exact moment, the other person was experiencing the same emotion. It's as if there is an emotional communication channel that is always open, always transmitting, regardless of distance or circumstances. This emotional telepathy is not something you can turn off, it's a natural phenomenon that emerges when two souls are truly in sync, living proof that there are dimensions of reality where distance, time, and physical barriers simply cease to exist. A touching example of this is a couple separated by 2 continents. She was undergoing a delicate medical procedure, and he was at home, trying to distract himself to avoid panic. The exact moment she came out of anesthesia, still confused and disoriented in the recovery room, she felt a wave of warmth and presence so strong it was as if he were physically there beside her, and when she finally accessed her phone hours later, she discovered that he had woken up at that exact moment from a deep sleep, feeling an urgent impulse that made him sit up and simply send thoughts of love and strength toward her. No one can explain how this works rationally, but the synchronization of events is undeniable. He was literally sending energy at the moment she needed it most. This is one of the most extraordinary twin flame signs, because there's no room for coincidence when you start accumulating examples of this magnitude. The fascinating part is that you can consciously practice this emotional telepathy to deepen it. During meditation, you can visualize the person and intentionally send feelings of love, healing, or support in their direction, and you will often receive confirmation that the intention was received. A simple practice is to choose a specific time of day, say 12 p.m., and at that moment, both people pause for a few seconds and think of each other, sending a mental pulse of love. Over time, you'll notice that during the moments of strongest emotional synchronization, coincidences increase exponentially. Books like Synchronicity by Joseph Jaworski explore how shared consciousness creates seemingly impossible phenomena. When you recognize this intense emotional telepathy not as coincidence but as genuine soul-to-soul communication, you begin to trust this channel more and more, because it proves that the bond you share is as real as anything physical you can touch. And it is in this trust in silent communication that you can support each other in ways that completely transcend the limitations of the material world. Sign 17, the sense of being fully seen. There is a transparency that emerges in the presence of a twin flame that is both terrifying and liberating. It's as if the masks you've built throughout your life simply no longer work, as if there's no place to hide, as if there's no need to hide. You are seen completely, your insecurities, your vulnerabilities, those parts of yourself you've even hidden from yourself, and instead of being rejected for it, you are understood with a depth you've never experienced before. It's the sensation of someone shining a flashlight into every corner of your being, revealing every shadow, and simply saying, "It's okay, I see you fully, and I choose to be here anyway." Many people go through their entire lives without feeling this, the experience of being truly seen, known, and accepted as they are, without the filter of performance or social conformity. A story that captures this is of a man who had spent his entire professional life building an image of success, of absolute competence, someone who never failed, when in reality he was full of insecurities, doubts, and moments of feeling completely lost. When he met his twin flame, in one of the first moments of vulnerability, he let that mask fall, and instead of seeing rejection in her eyes, he saw such genuine understanding that it nearly overwhelmed him. She didn't try to fix his insecurities, she didn't offer empty platitudes, she simply looked at him with such complete acceptance that the part of him that had been frozen for years began to thaw. He realized he no longer needed to maintain that exhausting performance, that he could be human, imperfect, truly himself, and still be loved. This is the power of a true twin soul. They see you so completely that you finally see yourself without judgment. The practice to cultivate and deepen this sense of being seen is intentional vulnerability, sharing with the person what you would normally keep to yourself, those parts you consider weak or unacceptable. Start small if needed, but gradually challenge yourself to reveal more of who you truly are beyond appearances. Books like Daring Greatly by Brené Brown explore deeply how authentic vulnerability creates true connection. When you realize you can be completely yourself and still be loved, something inside you is released, energy that had been spent maintaining an image suddenly becomes available for creativity, genuine love, and real purpose. And it is in this freedom of being fully seen that you can finally relate not as a performance, but as essence, and it is at this level that the deepest transformations begin to manifest in all areas of your life. As you integrate the truth that it is safe to be seen, you realize there are even deeper layers of yourself that have been waiting for permission to emerge. Sign 18, the deep fears that emerge to be transformed. The twin flame has a unique ability to illuminate every fear you've kept in the shadows, and not gently or gradually, but directly and intensely, like a flashlight pointed at what you've left in the dark for so long. Old fears resurface with renewed intensity, the fear of loss, the fear of not being good enough, the fear that happiness won't last, the fear that you are incapable of truly loving or being loved. These fears do not appear because the person is dangerous, they appear because their presence creates a safe enough space for them to finally surface and be processed. It's as if the universe is saying, you've held on to these fears long enough, now you have a partner who can help you transform them. Let them come. As these fears emerge and you confront them consciously, in partnership with someone who truly loves you, they begin to lose their power, they don't disappear, but they stop controlling your decisions and behaviors. A profound example is of a woman who had built her entire life around seeking security. She saved obsessively, planned everything down to the smallest detail, and had difficulty allowing herself any kind of risk or spontaneity. When she met her twin flame, who was more adventurous and believed in trusting life, her deepest fears began to erupt, the fear that trusting meant losing everything, the fear that life without absolute control would lead to disaster. But for the first time in her life, she had someone who didn't simply try to convince her that her fears were irrational, he consistently invited her to try, to take small steps outside her comfort zone, while holding her hand. Each time she took a small risk and nothing catastrophic happened, that ancestral fear lost a bit of its grip. As this transformation progressed, she discovered a much more abundant and joyful life when she finally allowed that fear to step aside. This is the true work of the twin flame. It's not about eliminating your fears, it's about transforming them through shared courage. The key to navigating these deep fears is first to recognize them without judgment, name exactly what the fear is, where it comes from, and which ancestral pattern it is operating through. Practices like EFT tapping, a technique that combines acupressure with psychology, can be incredibly effective for releasing fears stored in the body. There are free guided videos on YouTube to walk you through the process. Clear communication with your twin flame is also essential, expressing, "I'm feeling afraid of, and I need your support to transform this," create space for genuine partnership. As you work through these deep fears in the presence of your twin flame, you not only heal yourself, you also create a model of transformation that inspires your partner to do the same with their own fears. And it is in this shared courage, this mutual willingness to face what is in the dark, that true union forms, not a union of illusion, but one founded on absolute authenticity and real transformation. Sign 19, Synchronized changes in personal life. There is an extraordinary phenomenon that occurs when you are on a genuine twin flame journey. External transformations begin happening simultaneously in both lives, as if operating under the same cosmic script. One person changes jobs, and the other soon receives an opportunity in their field. One moves to a new city, and shortly after the other finds themselves in a relocation process as well. Both start studying similar subjects, seeking growth at the same times, going through life transitions in sync. It's not that one is copying the other, it's that both are responding to the same evolutionary call, the same universal push for transformation. It's as if they are on frequencies so aligned that they naturally move in parallel directions that eventually converge. These synchronized changes act as external confirmation that the connection is real. that the energetic alignment between you is so deep it even affects the concrete structures of your lives. A story that masterfully illustrates this is of a couple who met while both were in jobs that left them feeling empty. Neither had openly discussed dissatisfaction at work when they started dating, but a few months into the relationship, both began questioning their careers simultaneously. He had been considering leaving his corporate job for months, and she had received a proposal for her own business that she was contemplating, and when they finally had a deep conversation, they realized they had entered that state of transition at the same time, as if an invisible force was pulling both in the same direction. Both left their jobs in the same month, both started their own entrepreneurial journeys, and today work in completely different fields, yet their professional paths remain marked by these remarkable synchronizations. Promotions arrive at the same time, challenges appear in sync, celebrations happen together. This goes far beyond coincidence. It is the expression of two beings so deeply aligned that their life paths begin to dance together, even when pursued individually. What makes these synchronized changes even more significant is that they often serve to deepen twin flame confirmation. When you experience these synchronizations repeatedly, it becomes almost impossible to deny that something extraordinary is happening beyond rational explanation. A practice to become more aware of these changes is to keep records, in a journal or even a shared document. Note the transformations you and the other person are experiencing, the timing of changes, the patterns that emerge. You may be surprised by how consistent this synchronization is once you start observing it consciously. Apps like Notion allow you to create dashboards where you can clearly visualize these coincidences. As you recognize these synchronized changes as a natural part of the twin flame journey, you begin to trust the process more and more, understanding that a cosmic intelligence is orchestrating it all, and it is in this deep trust that you can finally release control and allow life to guide you in directions you never could have imagined on your own. Sign 20, Inexplicable Reunions. There are moments when you and your twin flame separate. There is silence, distance, what seems like an ending, and then, at the absolutely perfect moment, they reappear in your life as if they had never left, as if that gap needed to happen exactly as it did for you to reunite transformed. You might go weeks without contact, convinced it's over, and suddenly receive a message or encounter them by chance in a place you rarely go, and it's not a coincidence, it's the universe saying, it's not over yet, they still have a journey together. These inexplicable reunions always happen at the perfect time, when both people have gone through what they needed to experience alone, when both are ready for a deeper, more mature, more authentic union than before. It's as if there is a cosmic timing governing these meetings and reunions, a pattern you begin to recognize as you progress on this journey. A touching example of this is a couple who separated after 2 intense years together. He needed to resolve self-esteem issues, and she needed to learn how to set boundaries, so the universe separated them for both to do this inner work. 6 months passed in complete silence, with no contact and neither knowing how the other was doing. But in the very month they each completed their respective healing processes, when both had finally made peace with the past and freed themselves from the patterns that held them back, the person reappeared, not planned, not because one initiated contact, but because both simultaneously received the signal that it was time to reunite. When they saw each other again, the difference was palpable. They were the same people, but fundamentally transformed, and the reunion felt completely different from before because now both were operating from a place of wholeness rather than lack. This is the twin flame pattern. It's not a straight line, it's a cycle where separations prepare the ground for even deeper reunions. What you need to understand is that these inexplicable reunions are not accidental, they are governed by a timing that transcends your rational comprehension. When you are in a phase of separation, instead of panicking, you can trust that there is a reason, that there is purpose in that space. A powerful practice during these periods of separation is to focus on your own growth, do the inner work you know you need to do, release what still holds you back, because as you transform, you change your vibrational frequency, and when both of your frequencies are elevated and aligned again, the reunion will be almost magnetic. Books like The Way Back Home by John Kehoe explore how to maintain faith in processes that cannot be controlled rationally. As you experience these inexplicable reunions repeatedly, you develop unwavering trust in the process, the journey, the cosmic timing, and it is in this trust that you can finally fully let go of the illusion of control and allow life to guide you. And it is in this surrender that the most monumental transformations begin to unfold. Sign 21, Ego Collapse and Spiritual Maturity. There comes a point in the twin flame journey where you finally realize that you can no longer maintain those old defenses, those protections that for so long seemed so necessary. The ego simply cannot compete with the authenticity that this connection demands. It's as if a shell you've built over lifetimes finally cracks, falls apart, and you realize that you never really needed that armor. That true power lies in vulnerability, in transparency, in the complete surrender of what you thought you were. This collapse of the ego is not death, it is liberation, because by allowing that artificial construct of who you thought you were to die, you make space for the authentic self to emerge, the self that has been waiting centuries to express itself. The resistance you felt towards certain behaviors, certain feelings, certain truths, all of that crumbles when you finally recognize that the person beside you loves you precisely because you stopped struggling to be someone you never were. A story that captures this deeply is of a man who was extremely successful professionally, built on an identity of always having the answers, never needing help, being unbreakable. When he met his twin flame, he began to realize that identity was a prison, preventing him from truly connecting with the person he loved. At first, that rigidity kept him distant, that need for control created constant conflict. But as the relationship deepened, he started to understand that the person was not rejecting his strength, she was asking for his humanity. She wanted to know the man beneath that construct, to see his weaknesses, doubts, and uncertainties. And when he finally allowed that ego to disintegrate, when he let go of the mask of invulnerability, something miraculous happened. He did not become weaker, he became stronger, because that strength now came from a genuine place, not a defensive construct. His life transformed completely when he finally understood that true twin flame confirmation was not about being right, it was about being open, about being willing to evolve continuously. What few understand is that this collapse of the ego is actually the final stage of preparation for a true union, because a real union between twin flames is only possible when both individuals abandon the fiction of who they thought they were and embrace who they truly are. A transformative practice is to work with a coach or therapist specializing in spiritual development, professionals who work with models like Byron Katie's. The work can help you question the beliefs that form your constructed identity. Daily meditation is also crucial during this period, especially practices that cultivate self-compassion as you go through the discomfort of letting die what you once believed yourself to be. Books like Eckhart Tolle's A New Earth masterfully explore how to transcend the ego and access the true self. When you consciously complete this ego collapse in the presence of someone who loves you unconditionally, you emerge with a spiritual maturity that completely transcends who you were before. You become capable of loving from a place so deep, so authentic, that love is no longer dependence, it is co-creation, two souls operating as one while keeping their individualities intact. And it is at this very point that the true magic of the twin flame journey finally reveals itself in all its magnificence. You've made it this far and discovered the 21 irreversible signs. Now the real question is no longer, is this person my twin flame? The question now is, what am I going to do with this information? Because knowledge without action is just beautiful philosophy that changes nothing in your life. You may feel that recognition, that certainty that yes, this person really is your twin flame, but knowing this is not enough. You need to be willing to do the work, the deep personal transformation work, the work nobody wants to do because it's uncomfortable, because it demands that you change, that you grow, that you free yourself from patterns you've carried for lifetimes. So let me ask a few questions that need honest answers. Are you truly ready to be fully seen by this person? Are you willing to have your traumas illuminated, your wounds exposed, your defenses dismantled? Because if you found your twin soul, that is exactly what will happen, and the question isn't whether you want it, the question is whether you have the courage. Can you let go of the ego enough to allow this connection to transform you? Or will you try to tame it, try to keep it within limits you can control, and in doing so, miss out on a lifetime opportunity for true evolution. The twin flame journey is not for the faint of heart, it is not for those seeking a comfortable relationship, it is for those willing to be burned in the fire of transformation and emerge as a completely renewed version of themselves. Every sign you've learned here today is not just confirmation that this connection is real, it's a calling. A calling for you to rise up, to face what you've been avoiding, to finally live the life you came here to live in this incarnation. Because here's the ultimate truth, the universe never brings two souls together to repeat old patterns, it unites them to transcend, to evolve, to create. So now, after all of this, you need to make a decision. Will you keep going through this knowledge as if it's just another interesting video, or will you actually apply it to your life? Will you have the difficult conversations that need to happen? Will you do the inner work this journey requires? Will you trust the process even when everything seems to be falling apart? Because when you truly integrate these truths, when you don't just understand intellectually but consciously live each of these signs, your life transforms in ways you can't even imagine right now. If this video touched you today, if any of these signs resonated in your heart, if you saw yourself reflected in any of the stories I shared, then you need to keep walking this path. Because this content is just the beginning, it's only the gateway to a much deeper understanding of soul connections, purpose, and the true meaning of twin flame confirmation. There's so much more for you to learn, so many more layers to uncover, so many more signs to recognize, and I want to be with you on this journey. So now, I invite you, like this video so YouTube knows this content matters, subscribe to the channel so you don't miss the upcoming videos that will dive even deeper into this extraordinary journey, and hit the notification bell so you're alerted whenever I share new content about twin flames, spiritual growth, and the truths that can rewrite your life. Because when you find your twin flame, you're not just finding a person, you're finding the opportunity to become who you were truly meant to be. Thank you for coming with me on this journey today. I'll see you in the next video.